So this video is going to be all about flying Icelandair. It was my first time experience with this airline, and I was flying them from Pittsburgh to Bergen, Norway. Overall, it was a positive experience, but I want to share with you some of the pros and cons of Iceland Air so that you know more about the airline when you make choices to book on them. A quick disclaimer, I was not compensated for this video. I did not receive a free ticket, so this is completely my opinion on how the experience went for me. So the history of Iceland Air's flights from Pittsburgh is they began in May of 2024, and it's a seasonal route, and they currently run it from April until October, and they have 4 flights per week. So they fly on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday in the summer and in the fall. Flights from Pittsburgh leave at 8:30 p.m. and arrive in Reykjavik at 6:25 local time. And the return flight leaves Reykjavik at 4:55 p.m. and arrives in Pittsburgh at about 7:20 p.m. Actually, both of our flights over and back were early on arrival. So the time they quote is padded a little bit, which is good. Iceland Air flies a 737 MAX 8 on this route, and that is not a wide body jet. So unlike a lot of transatlantic flights that people are used to, it's just a 3-seat configuration with a center aisle. They don't have a business class, so there are no lay flat beds. They do have what they call Saga Premium, which is more like a domestic first class seat in service. So if you're like me, the first question you might have is Iceland Air a discount carrier? And the best answer I can give you is sort of, but not really. They kind of fall on the middle ground. On one end of the spectrum, you have discount carriers like Allegiant and Spirit. On the other end of the spectrum, you have Delta and United and American, which are more full-service legacy carriers. They fall in between those. So they're kind of more like a Southwest Airlines, which is interesting because they just entered into a partnership with Southwest to open up more destinations for connections for flights to Reykjavik. So in a smaller market like Pittsburgh that is not a hub, one of the real challenges in flying to Europe is doing it with less stops, less connections, and less time. Often you're going to be flying flight paths that take 15 to 20. I even saw some for the route we were taking that would take us more than a whole day to get there. And with Iceland Air, you are flying from Pittsburgh to Reykjavik and then on to over 30 destinations in Europe. They service smaller markets like the Canary Islands, Salzburg, Innsbruck, places that if you were flying from the US, you would have had to take a flight to a major hub in the US and then to either Amsterdam or Frankfurt or another hub in Europe and then catch another flight to that destination. So that creates a lot of connections, a lot of opportunities for missed connections and much longer time frames with layovers. The only options in a market like Pittsburgh right now are British Airways to London and then taking connections out of there, or Pittsburgh to Reykjavik. What's nice is the Reykjavik airport is a much smaller airport. So when you're doing your connections, you're not going into those major hubs like Amsterdam, which can be a lot more congested and have a lot more issues with delays. And now I'm going to tell you about what our experience on Iceland Air was like. Boarding in Pittsburgh was a breeze. It was easy and took no time at all. We were lucky we were flying on a holiday and ended up with an empty middle seat between us, which I think is an upgrade on any flight, but especially an international flight and economy. We found the seats to be adequate, comfortable. There was a good enough recline, and there was good leg room. I'm 6'1", and I felt comfortable in the seat. The flight crew was very friendly and helpful to passengers. The biggest drawback I saw was the in-flight entertainment was not that great. You do get a seat back screen, but on the seat back screen there was movies and TV available, but they were all pretty old and outdated, nothing new to watch. I didn't partake in using the entertainment system on the flight over because I was trying to sleep. On the flight back, I did watch some TV shows just to pass the time because it was daytime. The other area where I think things lack a little bit is in the dining and food and drink options. What you get on any flight on Iceland Air from the US or North America to Reykjavik is a free soda, water, coffee, or tea. You don't get the full can of soda, you only get a small glass of it. It is a 6-hour flight, so I think you could at least give out a full can of a drink. You can purchase meals ahead of time through the app. You can also order snacks on board and pay for those and pay for alcoholic beverages. But the only thing you get included is one soda. I think they might have come around at the end and had coffee and tea a second time. On the way back, I think you actually had an opportunity to get 2 drinks since it was a daytime flight. We arrived in Reykjavik on time. It's a very easy airport to transit and connect in. It's not really big. You go through passport control there for most of your European destinations, and when you arrive at your final destination, you'll do customs with your luggage at that point. But passport control was fast, it was easy, efficient, and you could make your connection, if it was tight, pretty easily through that. At the airport in Reykjavik, there was pretty good food options, nice shopping, so there was a way to pass the time. You arrive in the morning in most cases, so there was breakfast options available. Our connecting flight to Bergen was on time. The biggest difference on that flight is since it is going from Reykjavik to Europe, the only thing that's included is coffee, tea, or water, not a soda. Those need to be purchased along with snacks and any alcoholic beverages or meals on that flight. So for some of the pros to flying Iceland Air, the first one is price. We found the price to be about half of most of the other carriers like Delta, American, and United. Delta did have one option that we found that was only about $150 more at one point, but that was an outlier on that. Most of them were about double, some even more than that. So if price is a concern, this is a good choice. It saves on your budget for your travel. So the second pro would be that it's much faster, I think. You don't have to do as many connections. So most destinations that are not going to be major hubs in Europe are going to require at least 3 connections. So in this case, though, to 30 destinations, big and small, it's a 1 connection out of a market like Pittsburgh to get to Iceland. So that can make it much faster. We've also found flight time on the way over was 12 hours and on the way back was 10 hours. Most of the flights I was finding on other airlines on the way over started in the 16-hour time frame and went up to 20 or 24 hours to get there. On the way back, it was even more pronounced. I was finding anywhere from about 16 again at the quickest to sometimes 20 or 24 hours or more to make the journey home from a smaller market in Europe to a small market like Pittsburgh. One of the other big things that I think is important is a big pro is that you're avoiding the major hubs in Europe. So you are avoiding connecting in Amsterdam, Frankfurt, or London Heathrow, all very busy airports, more travelers, so longer waits for passport control in Reykjavik. It literally took us 10 minutes to get through passport control when we arrived. And on our way back, it was even shorter. So that's a big time saver and makes a possible tighter connection possible in that instance. Another pro is that it's one airline, so you're not relying on partner and code shares. So when you do have an issue, it's being rebooked typically on that airline, and you're dealing with one service group on that. So it makes it a little bit more seamless if you do have an issue, in my opinion. Another big pro for people that we weren't able to take advantage of in this case is the fact that you can do a stopover in Iceland on this flight. So you can stay for 7 days and then continue on, and you can do it on the front or back end of your trip at no additional charge for your ticket, and you get to explore a whole second country or second destination to where you were originally going to. So I think that's a big pro. If you're finding this video helpful, please like and subscribe and follow along on more of our adventures in Norway. So now let's go over some of the cons of flying Iceland Air. One of the primary cons, I think, is that it's not a legacy airline. So they do not have lounges, meals. They do have a lounge if you are a Saga flyer with them in Reykjavik, but that's the only place that I know of the lounge. And they don't have business class. And so you don't get the lay flat seats and the more space. So if those things are important to you as a traveler, then this is probably not a good choice of an airline for you. The frequency is another con. Since they only fly 4 flights a week from my airport, if I had specific dates I needed to travel for, that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. One of the other things I was worried about is the fact that we were on a flight from Bergen, Norway to Reykjavik to make a 1-hour connection. Our original flight was delayed. We did make our flight, but I started to research, well, when would I be able to get out of Reykjavik back to Pittsburgh? And it was a Sunday, and the next direct flight was not until Tuesday. Now, I know they could have made other accommodations and put us on a different flight, but it would have been a little bit more complicated and requiring a lot more travel time. But so that was a concern. So if you really have specific dates that you need to hit, this is probably not the best option for you. It's also a seasonal flight. So that's another con for some people. If you're flying in the winter, you're not going to, fly Iceland Air to Europe. But if you're flying in the spring, summer, or fall, then you should consider it as an option. Another con is the planes are smaller. It's not a wide body, so you don't have as much space on it. And for some people, that's an issue. It didn't bother me in the least bit. So my last con has to do with volcanoes. So one of the things I was always aware of is that there's flight interruptions to Europe due to volcanoes, primarily in Iceland. While we were in Norway, we started seeing news stories of a major eruption of a volcano in Iceland that was closing down different parts of the country and evacuating. It did not impact our flight. It did not impact any of the operations at the Reykjavik International Airport. But it was a potential problem that could change your plans on your trip. So volcanoes, it's a concern with flying Iceland Air. So I guess the big question is, would we fly Iceland Air to Europe again? And I would say it's a resounding yes. It was easy, it was fast, it was economical. The airline was great, they were easy to work with, everything went off seamlessly in our case. So if you were looking for an alternative to the big airlines and lots of connections, it's a great way to get to a lot of different destinations in Europe. So I would recommend checking it out as an option for your next transatlantic flight.